So, what I notice in her and what I noticed in this time is that she was just pretty much a delight to be around the entire time. There's always this question when you travel with your kids of like, how are they going to handle it? Is this going to be fun for me, or is it going to be like just me managing my kids the whole time? I think a lot of people in the past told me when I was pregnant with my daughter, they were like, well, good luck. Your traveling days are over as soon as you have a kid. Get it out of the way now. And while I think parts of that are true, it's definitely harder to travel with children. You just have more stuff and there's more people to take care of and more people's emotions to attend to. At the same time, I think our daughter is actually easier to care for when we're traveling because hello, my lovely friends, and welcome to today's episode of What We Tell Our Daughters. It has been a hot minute since I saw you last, mostly, well, completely accidentally. I had every intention of doing a podcast every week while we were gone, and I made it through the first 3 weeks or so, and then it just fell off a cliff. So, this was a lesson to me in having too high of expectations for myself and also prioritizing what's really important in my life at any given time. I was with family and friends and in a completely new country, loving exploring the world. And so, it was completely okay for me to set this aside for now and just live and be. And I think that was a reminder to me in these two constantly battling parts of life for me, which is one, consistency and showing up and doing the work and planning for tomorrow, and then two, living in the moment. So I feel like I'm always just kind of weighing between those two scales in my mind. But that's not what today's podcast is about. So today we are going to talk a little bit about traveling and what it was like to travel with our daughter. But what this really made me think about was, is it really our children's behavior that's a problem, or the way they are versus the environment they're in and the the novelty of things that they're able to see and interact with? And this is really a conversation. This is not a prescription at all. I'm going to share with you what I saw in our daughter and kind of the changes in her behavior that were really interesting while we were traveling. But I think this is an open-ended question. We historically, as humans, from an anthropological perspective, we were meant to spend a lot of time slow and resting and not doing. Much of our life was spent hanging out on the ground with all of the people in our community, eating food, playing with rock sticks, whatever we could find. There was a lot of downtime. And we have less and less of that now. And I do think we do that to our children. So there's this fine balance between entertaining and having things to do all the time and fostering boredom, because from boredom comes creativity. Now, that with that in mind, I did notice some interesting things about our daughter while we were traveling. And so she was for context, we were 3 weeks in the US and then 3 weeks in Belize. And the 3 weeks in the US were similar to what we experience here in Portugal, I think, with the way she is and the way she's interacting with people. Like, it was really busy. We had a lot of people to see, but her environment was very similar. It's a house she's been in before, it's family she's seen before, it's a lot of a similar interaction. Going to Belize, we were on the beach for the most part. We were in a few different apartments. So she got a different kind of view, a different idea of the island that we were on. So we were in San Pedro. A lot of different parts of Belize you can go. If you're listening to this and you're curious about traveling in Belize specifically with children, I have been to Key Calker by myself many years ago. I think it's a cool place. It's probably not the best kid place. San Pedro, Belize was really kid friendly. They had a lot of stuff to do. It definitely seemed more family centric than Key Calker when I was there. And it is really lovely because there's so many water activities, and our daughter loves the water. I think all kids love the water, but I think that's one of the reasons she was just so happy while we were there is she got to go in the water every single day. So what I noticed in her and what I noticed in this time is that she was just pretty much a delight to be around the entire time. There's always this question when you travel with your kids of like, how are they going to handle it? Is this going to be fun for me, or is it going to be like just me managing my kids the whole time? I think a lot of people in the past told me when I was pregnant with my daughter, they were like, well, good luck. Your traveling days are over as soon as you have a kid. Get it out of the way now. And while I think parts of that are true, it's definitely harder to travel with children. You just have more stuff and there's more people to take care of and more people's emotions to attend to. At the same time, I think our daughter is actually easier to care for when we're traveling because the novelty and the fun and the new things she's learning, she's tired at the end of the day, she's ready to go to sleep. And then in the morning, she's ready to play and ready to explore. And she's just happy all the time. Even when we're not doing crazy things, Belize, San Pedro, where we were, it's very small. It's a very small island. You have a pool, which is great and super fun. You have the ocean, which, I mean, to be fair, actually rained a lot of the time we were there. So we weren't in the ocean every single day, but it is really beautiful and it's definitely a different feel. That energy that you get there is really different than what we feel at home. Um, and we were in kind of like little condo type places. And so there were more people coming in and out. So she had a lot of different human interactions with new people and people playing with her and people interacting with her in a different way. And so what I found is actually, I felt like it was easier to be a parent traveling in some ways than it is to be a parent at home. At home, we fall into our routines. We want things to be a certain way. I think we're less go with the flow when it comes to whatever happens today happens, whatever life brings us happens, or jumping on opportunities to do things. Where I think is when you're traveling, you're a lot more likely to say, you know what? So be it. Whatever, if you go to sleep an hour later, we're in any place and we're exploring and we're only going to be here for a little while. And when we as parents relinquish the control and just kind of let life flow, I think our children act the same and we can see that kind of reflected in their behavior. But I also really do think that that novelty, that fun, that there's so many things to do and see really played into that for her. So I've always believed that traveling is one of the ways that I want to teach my daughter about the world. I don't know exactly what school is going to look like for her, but I know that having world school is really important for me. And I think you learn so much by doing and seeing and experiencing. When I was 16, I lived in Nicaragua for a summer and I lived in a community, a very small community. There were 50 people. We had some running water, not really a lot of running water, honestly. Only a few of the houses actually had power. Maybe one or two had a TV magically. But this was very, very rural living. There were seven of us sleeping in one room. And I remember this was so impactful in my own life because there was a little boy who was sick. He was about 2 years old. He lived down the street, down I don't know, two huts away. And we went over to see him one day so that my host mom could pray for him. And, everyone was basically just there to pray for him. And I could tell that this boy was really dehydrated. Like he needed food. He needed probably just hydration. He definitely needed a hospital. Unfortunately, the community I lived in was so small and a river ran through the middle of it. So whenever it rained, it became almost impossible to get from one side of the river to the other up until a few days. And at that point in time, it was torrential downpour. So it was very dangerous to cross the river. So nobody took him to a hospital. And about 2 or 3 days later, he died. And we ended up going to his funeral as well. And I remember this experience, and I feel like this has been so impactful in my own life because it was the first time that I really lived what it was like to have been born into a completely different world and to really experience like, if this had happened in the US, that little boy probably would have been just fine. He would have gone to the hospital, he would have gotten an IV, he would have gotten whatever medical care he needed, maybe he needed antibiotics, and he would have been okay. In this situation, he was not. Um, and that was really the point where I decided that I wanted to be a doctor, which didn't ever happen for me, and that's okay. But it was also the point that I realized you learn so much by traveling and immersing yourselves and experiencing other ways of living and understanding different people's views of life. And I think that in this world we live in, yes, knowledge is important, but we can go to Dr. Google or, you know, Chat GPT at any moment and ask it just about anything and get an answer. Maybe knowledge isn't the most important thing anymore. Maybe it's human understanding and human connection and skills to help other people. This is just musing, but that's what I think for our daughter is going to be really impactful. And if this resonates with you at all and you're listening and you're a parent and you're like, yes, I think the same thing, or, I've thought this, I felt this, but I haven't really tried the traveling thing with kids. This is my mess. This is me saying to you, like, try it. It's really actually quite great. And I think your kids might surprise you at how good they are at navigating the challenges that traveling brings, and how much they might learn by seeing and experiencing other ways of life. So, we're going to keep doing this for the foreseeable future as much as we can, travel and expose our daughter to new ways of life. And I'll share what that's like along the way. And if you are curious about like really tactical travel tips, I'm happy to share those too. But to be honest, I'm pretty go with the flow. Like we don't bring a lot. We just try to make it as simple as possible. And the baby wrap is still my best friend. Our daughter's over 18 months now and she weighs 25 pounds, but it is still the best way by far to get her around and not feel like you're carrying a billion things. So this episode today was really more of a reflection on thinking about if your child is having certain behaviors that are frustrating for you or you're wondering where they come from. I think it is really important for us to look at ourselves first, of course, because they're always going to mirror back wherever we are. If we're responding with stress, if we're responding with must-dos, rules, hard lines that aren't rooted in reason, they're going to feel that and see that and push back against it. But I think also our children love to be nurtured in a way that helps their brain grow and experience and see. And so, whatever we can do to foster that in them, like I think about myself sometimes and I'm like, yeah, I get bored staying at home. Like, if I was sitting at home all day, which some days I am sitting at home all day working, at the end of the day, I'm like really antsy. I want to go out. I want to go do something. I want to go see something, go see some people. And our little people probably feel the same exact way. So if they've been sitting at home or even had a babysitter at home all day and they've been playing, at the end of the day, if they're running circles around you and you're too tired and it's driving you crazy, it's probably because they've been amped up and kind of keeping this energy in. And now that you're there, they're safe to just release it all and let it go and try to get you to go do whatever fun thing it is that they want you to do. But um, I signed up for a parenting course while we were, this is actually quite comical. Like right after we left, like 2 or 3 days after we left, Atlas was going through a pretty big, um, not full tantrum phase, but just like pretty demanding. I want this now type of thing. So I signed up for this parenting course thinking, maybe there's some skills and tools that I don't have that'll help me. And what I realized over the course of the last 6 weeks of traveling is that any and all of her behaviors that are frustrating for me are really coming more from a place of her probably being frustrated. And it's important for us to kind of dig in and figure out what that is. And I do think that there are some children that really need and thrive on that stimulation and that novelty. And there may be some children, not my child, that really needs more rest and downtime. Both are super important. In fact, I think at this point, I'm trying to work more rest into her daily life because I think she's so amped up at the end of the day because she's experienced so much. It's really hard for her to turn her brain off. So yeah, sorry if this was a bit of a ramble. It's strange coming back to a podcast after you've been gone for a long time. This is kind of me getting my toes wet again, but I hope this was maybe a little bit thought-provoking for you. And if you are a parent and you have any insights or anything to share on that same note, I would love to hear it. I would really love for this podcast or this avenue of communication to be a way for us to share ideas and bounce them off of each other. And while I don't have that many people to interview on the podcast right now, if you're interested in just having a conversation with me, please reach out because I would love to do that in podcast form. And today, I also want to touch on something I've been working on and dreaming on for a long time, and that is a women's health optimization program. So I know that a lot of the podcasts I've done in the past have been centered around different types of women's health topics. And the podcast will continue to be a combination of topics. It's going to be life, it's going to be parenthood, it's going to be children, it will be some travel. We'll have women's health mixed in. But the next few episodes, I'm really going to dive into some science. And we're going to break down some of the biggest complaints that women have when it comes to their period and their menstrual cycles. So, PCOS, we see a lot. We see endometriosis, we see infertility. We're going to go through each one of these and others um, in depth and really walk through some of the research and the science and talk about why it is that I think this program I've created is one of the best ways for us as women to truly understand our body. I think that what's lacking, there's so much knowledge out there now, right? You could follow a billion Instagram accounts that are going to tell you, here's 7 tips for optimizing your menstrual cycle, or here's what you should eat, or here's what your menstrual blood consistency should be like. Like, I could find countless free accounts that are wonderful and amazing that give me so much information. What this doesn't tell us is the nuance of you and who you are and what really works well for you and your body. That's where I think women have the most magic and the most power that we can tap into is this deep, deep understanding of what your body needs, of what your body is telling you, and this connection to your physical body. And so, what I'm creating and what I'm going to share with you along the way is really a, a system for you to implement that helps you start to figure out what makes me, Danya, feel amazing, what makes me feel not amazing. When I'm not feeling great, are there any other data points that I can pull in here that help me kind of put together the picture of what's really happening in my body? Maybe you wake up feeling sluggish and tired and not so great, and you look at your aura ring and your sleep score is actually amazing. And all of your scores reflect what looks like you should be super rested. This is a case in point. This has happened to me many times, right? Where it's like, you're doing great. You should feel awesome. You should go. But my body is telling me a different story. My body is like, something just doesn't feel right. I feel tired or I feel like something is off. What is it? That's what I want to help you understand because I think that's where all of these other amazing tools and resources we have sort of fall short is in this deep connection to ourselves and what we really need. If you're listening and interested in these topics at all, these are going to be helpful for you to listen to whether or not you're interested in this program. If you are interested in like really doing a deep dive, I am doing this mostly to test this program on women right now. So I'll share more about it as it comes together. But basically, this is like just at cost, just the amount it costs to get all of the things that I need for us to make this work for you, right? So we're going to do a Dutch test, which is a hormone test. And we're not just doing the Dutch Complete, which is like a hormone test that you would do once in your cycle. Usually we try to do that about a week before you have your period. We're going to do the cycle tracking Dutch test, which gives us really, really in-depth information into what's happening over the course of your entire menstrual cycle. I'm going to talk more about that in the coming episodes. We're going to dive deep into sleep. So if you have an Aura ring, amazing. That price will be taken off the price of the program. If you don't have one, then it's going to be included in your program because I think that it gives us really important and helpful information as well. And then we're also going to do some blood sugar monitoring because that's also a big piece of the puzzle for people that we're not always putting together and drawing the lines. And these 3 things in combination give us sleep. it gives us some movement data. I don't love the Oura Ring for movement, but it does give us data. That's really helpful and really important. We have blood sugar and then we have hormones. These are some of our biggest levers when it comes to improving our health and really optimizing our body. But most importantly, these are some of the biggest insights you can have into what makes you feel amazing and be able to do all the things you love to do. So that's what we're going to be outlining. Like, I'm going to talk about some really scientific, I don't even want to call them conditions. They're more like symptoms of imbalance. And we're going to dive into why people might be experiencing that, why not, what are some of the things we can do about it, and then we're going to pull back and look at it in the context of why I think some of this cycle tracking deep body understanding program I've created, I think is really helpful. So stay tuned. And if you have any questions that you'd like me to answer, either symptoms you're experiencing, hormone issues, diagnoses that you've had in the following coming episodes, please share them with me in the comments on YouTube or on Substack. If you're listening on Substack, that would be great. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in the next episode, which I promise will actually come next week.